You know those absolutely flawless, picture-perfect weddings you see? Well, behind the scenes, there's often this hidden world of quiet chaos. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and figure out why wedding coordination so often falls apart weeks before anyone even walks down the aisle. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? What looks like a finely tuned system is often just organized improvisation. And honestly, relying on luck and last-minute problem solving is a really risky way to manage one of the most important days in a person's life. You see, the real breakdown in coordination isn't some big, dramatic disaster on the wedding day. It's actually more like a slow burn of miscommunication and confusion that happens in the weeks leading up to it. This is what we call hidden friction. Like when the florist and the band get two totally different setup times, it just creates so much unnecessary stress for everybody. And this highlights a huge disconnect. From the venue's point of view, hey, everything looks like it's running pretty smoothly. But if you talk to the vendors, for them, it's a constant scramble. They're dealing with overlapping setups, confusing timelines. It's a mess. All that inefficiency creates a super stressful experience for the very people who are supposed to be making the day magical. So where is all this chaos coming from? Well, here's the thing. It's not the people, it's the system. You have all these talented, hardworking professionals who are just stuck trying to navigate these really flawed processes. So let's dive into the 5 root causes of this systemic failure. All right, the first root cause boils down to a question every single vendor asks. Where can I find the right information? I mean, if you can't get a straight answer on basic stuff like parking or power access or even the Wi-Fi password, you've got a fundamental problem. The issue is that the information is just everywhere. It's buried in a 100-reply email chain, it's living in the couple's memory, or it's trapped in some staff group chat. When you don't have one single source of truth, you're guaranteed to have inconsistencies, and that friction, it eventually leads to conflict on the day of the event. Okay, our second root cause is all about responsibility. So, who's actually in charge of making sure all the logistical pieces fit together? Too often, that incredibly important job falls to the people who are the least equipped to handle it. That's right, the couple. When you force them to be the go-between for a dozen different suppliers, mistakes are bound to happen. A technical need gets lost in translation, a timeline update is forgotten. You have to remember, they are the clients, not professional project managers, and they really shouldn't have to be. So, root cause number 3 is all about tracking decisions. Let's just imagine for a second that the start time for the cocktail hour changes. How can you be 100% certain that the caterer, the DJ, and the bar staff all got the memo and confirmed they saw the update? The problem is fragmentation. Communication is spread across emails, phone calls, texts. It's all over the place. That makes it pretty much impossible to trace a key decision back to where it came from. And when there's no traceability, you've got people working with outdated information, which is just a recipe for disaster. Our fourth root cause? It's all about leadership. Picture this. It's the middle of the reception, and the photographer wants to move a speaker to get a better shot. They ask, hey, who can I ask to approve this? If the answer is slow or unclear, you've just spotted a huge problem with the chain of command. When there's no clear hierarchy, decisions just stall out and confusion takes over. And when everyone has a different idea of who's in charge, well, you get chaos. The key thing to remember here is that having clear authority isn't about being bossy. It's about creating clarity. It's the fastest way to prevent those on-the-fly mistakes. And that brings us to our final root cause, which is all about the very foundation of the plan itself. What information are vendors actually using to make their logistical plans? A lot of the time, it's not based on facts, but on assumptions. So often, essential documents like the final confirmed timeline or detailed floor plans with power outlets marked, or even clear venue policies, they're either missing or they're outdated. This forces vendors to guess, and let's be real, assumptions are the bedrock of logistical errors. Now, this organized improvisation we've been talking about isn't just stressful, it's expensive. All this chaos has real, tangible costs that hit the bottom line of every single business involved in the event. Look, poor coordination hits your business where it hurts. It leads to staff overtime because you're fixing last-minute problems. It creates frustration among your best suppliers, the very people you count on for referrals. And ultimately, it can lead to unhappy clients, bad reviews, and long-term damage to your reputation. But here's the good news. There is a better way. We can actually move from all this reactive chaos to proactive control. The solution isn't to just work harder or send more emails, it's to work smarter by building a much better system. And the solution is a 4-step process that tackles each of those root causes we talked about. First, you create a centralized hub, one single online spot where all the final information lives. Second, you give vendors direct access to the logistics they need so they're not always chasing you for information. Third, you define the communication hierarchy before the event even starts. And finally, you standardize the key documents so everyone is, quite literally, on the same page. This is how you make complexity manageable. Now, you might be thinking, well, the old way has worked fine for me, but the wedding industry is changing, and those old informal methods, they're not just inefficient anymore, they're becoming a major liability. Weddings today are just way more complex than they used to be. You've got larger teams, more sophisticated technology, tighter timelines, and this rising complexity just relentlessly exposes all the weaknesses in those outdated systems. What kind of worked in the past is now setting you up for failure. And this really brings us to the most important point of all. The solution to all this complexity is not to just fire off more emails or schedule more meetings. The solution is not more messages. It is better infrastructure. So let's end with this thought. A flawless, seemingly effortless wedding is never an accident. It is the direct result of deliberate, thoughtful, and structured coordination. And that is a system worth investing in.